Hi, I'm May. Come make some musical electronics with me. Let's get intellectual. Morning. So here I am at my home studio. I do have a studio that I try and work in, but after I interned for RCP, I noticed that most of the composers there were using Cubase, and I had the opportunity to watch them use Cubase, and it's a really amazing DAW. That said, I've been working on Pro Tools since I was 18. So I'd buy a Mac, I'd put Cubase on it, and I would try and avoid all of the problems that I consistently have with Pro Tools when I moved into that studio. Well, unfortunately, Macs these days, even 2-year-old Macs, don't use USB, and my USB port died. So I'm not in my studio today, but I will try and take you there later to show you around and maybe do some work there in some other format. Nevertheless, because of that, I have work today, and that work is on a project that I had to do in Pro Tools. So I thought it would be cool to just show you what I'm doing, because it's a strange lifestyle being an independent composer. And, today I'm working from home on Pro Tools, and hopefully tomorrow or the next day I will have another job since this one's due tomorrow. And hopefully I'll be in my studio again. We'll see. But yeah. It's kind of a strange life. For instance, it's noon. I'm getting started at noon today. That's just how the day played out. I just heard back from the client on wanting a tone change at the end of their short. And so I couldn't really get started until I heard back from them. And that can make the days unpredictable, but you roll with it, and hopefully you have supplemental income. I have multiple Etsy shops and other various things I do, including this YouTube channel. Hopefully someday will be monetized. So, and if not, maybe I'll go work at Starbucks. We'll see. Anyhow, I'm going to get started and take you with me throughout the day. This is a day in the life of a film composer. Let's get started. So one of the things that happens consistently when using Pro Tools as a film composing DAW is that it can run into issues with having multiple MIDI tracks or instrument tracks. And expanding your RAM will help greatly with that. But it ends up having CPU issues if you have a lot of plugins running at the same time, and it's just really better to avoid it if possible. So for me, when I'm working on longer shorts or features, I don't work on features. If I'm working on a film that is longer than 5 minutes, let's say, I try to use MIDI as little as possible. I tend to lean towards that anyway. I come from a engineering background in school, and I was in a band and did recording and things like that. So I like to record my own samples anyhow. So ideally, when I'm making a film score, I'm using real instruments out here as much as possible. Whether that's, hitting a bicycle wheel or whatever you got to do to get that tone. However, this is a really short, and it just is so much more practical to use a virtual instrument waterphone than to go out and get a $1,000 waterphone. In this one moment, I need to put one sweep of a waterphone in, and I used MIDI, I used a plugin, and now my solution is to print this track to audio. Computer's yelling at me. And then I take the original MIDI track and I hide it and make it inactive. That way, if I need to change things later, it's still there. I can manipulate it and then reprint to audio, but it's not taking up space. And the processor doesn't have to deal with it. Stop yelling at me. So that is just a tip. That's what I'm about to do now. And after this, I'm going to sort through some actual songs that I have written because the director and I just decided that the ending credits really should have a song, but ideally we don't want to he doesn't want to pay any, royalties. And I offered my sound to catalog. So I'll probably take you with me to sort through those, and then we'll go to lunch. So I started going through my library of pop songs, rock and roll songs, and I just don't think there's anything quite chipper enough. So that means actually recording a song. So I'm kind of glad I'm working in Pro Tools at this moment. But it's time to eat something, and I'm gonna do that. So let's go eat. Hey. Oh. So, I think it's time to go to the studio. I do have some drawing to do for my Etsy shop, some designing, and I typically I'm also working on a musical. I typically work on it at my studio, so this is a perfect opportunity. Let's go. Come on, Black Jesus. Let's go. You can't tell, but I'm wearing orthopedic shoes. So we're in my studio. It's a small little place, but it's a good place. It's only musicians in this building, and it's in Santa Ana, which I love. It's a good downtown area, and I got here and realized that I don't have some of the things I was supposed to bring with me, and I really don't want to drive back. So here's what we're gonna do. I am still waiting on, I just uploaded the most current draft of my film score to Dropbox. I'm waiting on the director to get back to me and tell me if it's good or not. And when I say that, I mean it's a horror film that ends with a joke. So he wants it to end with a happy tone. And boy, I understand the subtleties of horror and sadness with expertise, but the subtleties of happiness and comedic music is something to explore, because you can really take a film the wrong way if you get the wrong tone. I went for a celebratory tone. I have no idea if that's the right tone. It's very possible that he wanted something more comedic. He could have wanted, your classic. What is that from? I forget right now. But anyhow, I don't know. So I am waiting on his response. I'm not going to go any further with the score. And that's just kind of how this life goes. That said, Sean Arberg from Pork Magazine, he has the Dungeon Degenerates game, which is amazing artwork in it. And he's running a October monster drawing thing. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna look up what the monster of the day is and try and draw one. Alright, so it's getting late. I drew this goblin. It's not great, but I was working with this eraser. I already put it away, but got this eraser at the Met. And this eraser leaves blue and green junk all over the page. So that fucks up my process. And my brush pen is frayed to the point of insalvageability. Can't use it. So, I mean, I used it, but so anyhow, I think I'm gonna pack up, and I haven't heard from my client, so that might be it for today, unless I hear back one last round of revisions, in which case I am working from home anyways. So I'm going to go. Yeah. Heading home. Let's go. So I think that's it for today. I haven't heard back from my client, and I'll probably check my Etsy shop, but it looks like there weren't any new orders today, and honestly, pretty beat. I think I'll watch a scary movie and hang out. So, yep, that's a day in the life of a film composer, at least this film composer, and I hope you enjoy it. Sláinte. There's nothing in this.